Welcome, everyone, to the Graduate Studies Information Session here with the College of Public Policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. My name is Leslie Powell. I'm the founding dean of the college, and I'll be the moderator for the session this afternoon, depending on where you are, with my colleagues from the college and also from our admissions office. Next slide, please. This is the agenda for today's information session. We have a dean's list here at the college of our exceptional students, and so we will be honoring them and identifying them in a slide to tell you who they are. And we should have one or two of the dean's list students sharing a few remarks with you about their experience here at the college. Then we'll have an overview of the college and its position within HBKU and Education City, an introduction of the faculty members that we have here with us. Then we have two programs, a new one, a Master of Social Policy and Program Evaluation, which will be described by Dr. Anis Brick, one of our colleagues here, who was instrumental in designing that program. The Master of Public Policy, which I'll be introducing. Dr. Oskan, unfortunately, isn't able to be with us this afternoon. The Capstone Projects, which are a key component of the MPP, will be introduced by Dr. Logan Cochran. And then we will have a short Q&A session there in case people have any questions about the two programs. And then we'll move to Ms. Lan Asfour from admissions, and she will be describing the admissions requirements and also available online during the session for any questions and answers, and then we'll have closing remarks. So before we get on to the main event, let me share a few housekeeping rules with regard to Q&A. We encourage you to post your questions as we go through the presentation, so you don't have to wait until the very end. Your mics are not going to be turned on, so just as a reminder, you're not going to be able to pose your questions orally. You need to post your questions or pose your questions to us in written form on the Q&A tab. On the lower side of your WebEx screen, if you're on a laptop, you see the three dots there at the bottom. And you click on that, and that'll take you to the Q&A interface, and you can type out your question there. And please direct it to all panelists so that all of us can actually see the question that you're asking. And we'll address as many of these as we can when we get to the Q&A session. But I'll remind you, at any point during the presentations, if something is unclear, you can type in your question. We won't address it right at that moment, but we'll get to it during the Q&A session. And for the next slide, if you're on a mobile device, once again, go down to the bottom and you'll see the three dots, and that will get you into the Q&A interface, and you can type your question there. Thank you. So moving on now to the Dean's List. The Dean's List is, the members of the Dean List are selected each semester. And they're selected from the first and the second year cohorts of the students. And in order to make the Dean's List, you have to be in the top 20% of the cohort, of that particular cohort, for that semester in terms of GPA. So the GPA, the grade point average, you have to be in the top ranks of the students. And of course, if you continue to remain in those top ranks, you get selected for the Dean's List on an ongoing basis, semester by semester. So these really are our best students. Not all of them are here with us today because many of them are working or at home. All of you know the circumstances that we're all facing with the pandemic here and elsewhere. But for our second year students, we have four students: Mariam Hamadi, Sara Asami, Mariam Al-Shidi, and Mariam Al-Kuwari. Among our first year students, the four selected were Sahar El-Sahel Salah, Almaha Al-Buani, Noor Hamwi, and Zubash Shakir. And now, if everything goes according to plan, we should have at least one, if not both, of the students whose names are highlighted in red there to share a few words. So if Sahar or Mariam are with us, perhaps we'll try Sahar first. I believe she was on with us earlier during the rehearsal. So Sahar, if you are there, you can unmute your mic and say a few words to the students about your experience here at the college.
Oh, hello, everybody. My name is Sahar Al Saleh. So I'm a graduate student at MPP program. So for me, I come from a health background. So this program is an environment where you will meet people from different backgrounds. I mean, the learning experience would be different in this program, as you would share your point of view of what public policy is from your background with other people from other backgrounds. So for me, till this was my first semester, and it was an enlightenment for me, to be honest. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Sahar. Is Mariam with us? Mariam Al-Hamadi?
I'm here. Hi.
Oh, hi. Great. Thank you for joining us. If you can share a few words about your experience, maybe a little on your background as well and why you selected the program.
First of all, I will take this opportunity to thank all my professors. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be one of the Dean list. Second, my background, I'm a central banker. I work in financial stability. I'm the director of financial stability. And this program added a lot to my work experience and also an overall. I just had a talk with one of our advisor, and I told him that I'm studying a policy, public policy major, and he said this is one of the important majors that people need to think about. Either is it a policy or just having to set a regulation for our banks, or even to change a strategy. This all information I gain from having this program. We did not take it only from a policy perspective. We see it from an ethical point, from economic points, from all aspects in our life. So I encourage everyone to join this. It's if you want to make changes, if you want to add value, if you want to add value to the place you are going to work or currently work, public policy is what you should choose. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariam. And once again, congratulations to both you and Sahar for your academic accomplishments in the program and your contributions. I should have noted that our Dean's List students not only are exceptional in terms of their academic performance, but they give back a lot to the program as well. So thank you to both of you. Okay, if we can move on to the next slide, please, Mr. Azzedine. Thank you. So a little bit about HBKU, the Hamad bin Khalifa University. It's a member of the Qatar Foundation, QF, and it was founded in 2010. So it's a little over 10 years old now. And as mentioned, it's located within, for those of you that are not in Doha, it's located in Education City, which is actually what the name entails. It's a small city within a city made up of educational and research institutions, partner universities from representing some of the most reputable universities around the world in different disciplines, and research institutes that are working in biomedical fields and computing, as well as health research institutes. So it's an enormously stimulating environment within which the college is embedded, and it's embedded within HBKU, which is embedded within Education City. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I haven't seen ever in my career this kind of ecosystem of research and teaching institutions. So it's quite distinctive. Within HBKU, we really do try to emphasize innovation and research. It's only a graduate university. There are only master's and PhD students here, so it's quite selective and it's quite elite in that sense, in the best sense of the term. And all of our programs strive to be multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary, as you heard from our two students. The kind of experience that you have in the college, in our college, but in other colleges in HBKU as well, is one where you're using the tools coming from different disciplines, even if you're located or anchored in one, to deal with issues from engineering in the engineering faculty to Islamic studies and Islamic studies or public policy or law. We really are making our efforts, despite being a young university, to have collaborations and partnerships with leading institutions around the world so we can benefit from those synergies as well. And you'll see some of that in the next few slides. Next slide, please. This is a organization chart of the university. And you can see there, it really consists of 3 clusters of institutions. The first is the colleges. The colleges, there are 6 of them. If you go back to the other slide, please. There are research institutes, 3 of them, CURI, QCRI, and QBRI, dealing with environment and energy. And we have a very close relationship with them. The Computing Research Institute and Biomedical, and then centers on executive education, the HBKU Press, and an innovation center that is cross institution in terms of being connected to both the colleges and the research institutes. Thank you. So now next slide, and we'll move into the college specifically. So the College of Public Policy, let me give you some background about us. We're the newest of the 6 colleges and was established in 2019, in July of 2019. So we've had now 1 successful cohort. It's a 2-year program, as you'll see in a moment, with the MPP. So we've had 1 successful cohort, excuse me. And our second cohort is in process, when we're going to be recruiting our 3rd cohort, inshallah, with the people here that are online. The focus obviously is public policy, but we're connected to the Qatar National Vision and trying to make a contribution to the country's challenges, the regional challenges, and to the global challenges as well. Again, we're aiming at being a leading policy school, both in Qatar itself, and we do have 1 or 2 competitors, so that keeps us on our toes, and also but also adopting the best international standards in terms of the design of the program. So when we designed the program in 2019, we looked to best practices and international examples of the best leading schools. We will be in the next 2 years seeking accreditation. So that, again, that's a mark of approval and a mark of alignment with the best international standards. And the university as a whole is going forward for international accreditation as well. So, and the faculty, as you'll see in a moment, that we've recruited are all scholars of note in their particular subfields within the discipline, but they're also, in terms of their educational backgrounds, their teaching experience, their consulting activities, and their experiences at other institutions before they came to HBKU are expressions of this international standard that we're bringing here. So our ambition is to give you a program and graduate you from a program that is at least as good, if not better, than a leading public policy program that you would take in Europe or North America or in the leading ones in Southeast Asia. So we aspire to that international standard while still recognizing that we need to speak to the local context here in Qatar and in the region. Next slide, please. This will give you a sense of our partners and engagement. The International Public Policy Association is an international association of programs and schools. I'm the vice president of that association, and some of my colleagues, like Dr. Anis, are very closely involved as well in terms of research activities. The Astana ACSH is the Astana Civil Service Hub, which is our link to Central Asia. RANEPA is the Russian Presidential Academy of National Economy. I was personally associated with them in the past, and we have an MOU with the RANEPA. It's the largest university in Europe and gives us access not only to the Russian space, but also to European partners as well. The Hawassa University is in Ethiopia. We have an MOU with them. And obviously, because of the current circumstances, we haven't been able to do very much with them. It's a relatively recent MOU, but we're hoping that this will be a bridge into at least Western Africa and key institutions there. The Qatar Financial Center Regulatory Authority is a partner, a formal partner with us. We have an MOU with them as well. We have worked with a variety of different ministries of the state of Qatar, of the government of Qatar. The Doha Forum, there at the bottom left, is an international summit meeting that is sponsored each year by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And we have been engaged in both previous iterations, and also our students this past summer were directly engaged as interns in designing one of the key documents that was part of the platform for the Doha Forum. The University of Maryland and the University of California, Berkeley are two partners with which we have MOUs, and Dr. Anis is working with both of those institutions to offer executive training and also faculty and possibly in the future student exchanges. Reach Out to Asia is a program here in QF. Just an illustration, we have other relationships with other entities as well, and we are continuing to build them. So when you come to our program, to the College of Public Policy, you're not just coming to the college, you're not just coming to HBKU, you're not just coming to QF, you're coming to an institution that will connect you through various networks and associations with institutions right around the world. So you get instant access and entry and possibilities that are related to all of these different activities and partners that we have at our disposal. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of our current faculty members. Dr. Özkan Öztürk, who's basically our key economist working in the economic field, trade relationships, and is the MPP coordinator and is the person to whom you will address questions later if you need to follow up after this session to find out more about the program. Dr. Andreas Reckheimer, whose areas of specialization are in sustainability, climate change, environment, and sustainable governance. Dr. Anis Brick, primary areas of expertise. It's difficult to name just a few, but primary areas of expertise include social policy, broadly defined, family policy, and then program evaluation. Dr. Logan Cochran, equally diverse in his interests and expertise, but primarily areas of development, policy design, economic development in areas like Africa, where he's done a lot of work, and specifically Ethiopia. Dr. Kim Maloney, who is an expert on public administration, but with a particular twist, transnational public administration, which many of you may sound to you like a strange term, but it deals with the administrative apparatus of international organizations and their connections to local and national bodies. Dr. Daryl Jarvis, who just joined us recently as well, his areas of expertise are higher educational policy, and he is also working on political economy and policy design. We are launching a new program, which you'll hear about in a moment, and we will be adding 2 additional faculty members to our group. So we will eventually, by the fall, be a group of 8 faculty members. And of course, we have adjuncts and visitors, several exciting ones in the fall semester. So in addition to the 8, we will have 2 or 3 very exciting international visitors on a regular basis coming through the college. Next slide, please. So we'll now move to our programs, and this is the Master of Social Policy and Program Evaluation. Dr. Anis Brick, who had a very direct role in helping design it, will describe it. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A box. Unfortunately, or fortunately for his students, Dr. Anis has to leave just before 4 o'clock, so he's got about 10 minutes. But just enter your questions and I'll take them on, and if anything requires Dr. Anis's direct response, then we can put that to him via email and he can get back to you directly. So I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Anis to describe this new program.
Thank you, Dean Paul. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The Master for Social Policy and Program Evaluation is a new program at the CPP. It's a full-time 2-year degree. The program provides advanced and substantive knowledge of social policy, including education, health, family, social protection, and methods of program evaluation to educate professionals for career in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. The program will offer a combination of theory, social policy analysis, policy research, and evaluation methods, both quantitative, qualitative, and economic evaluation methods, and offer the opportunity to gain real-world and practical experience. This is an interdisciplinary degree which will draw from multiple fields of study, including economics, political science, public policy, sociology, psychology, education, law, and public health. Next slides, please. Students in the first year will take 4 core courses: Foundation of Social Policy, Foundation of Evaluation, Research Method, and Social Policy Analysis, and 2 electives offered by the college or by HBKU colleges. In the second year, students will choose between 2 concentration, social policy or program evaluation. For the social policy concentration, students will take 3 courses: welfare of children and family, health policy, education policy. The program evaluation concentration in students will take 3 courses: program evaluation planning and design, benefit cost analysis for program evaluation, advanced method for program evaluation. Next slides, please. And in second year, students are required to complete a master thesis worth 3 credits, which will address a research topic relevant for Qatar, the Middle East, or globally, and which includes a defined field of research and a number of researchable questions to investigate in the field of social policy or program evaluation. This should demonstrate a good knowledge of the literature in the field of social policy or program evaluation, and demonstrate an ability to analyze through the careful and critical use of relevant concepts and approaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anis. I know you have to move on to your class, so so good luck with the class, and thanks for participating. I'll just add that the MSPPE, the Master of Social Policy Program Evaluation, is a new program. So you'll hear a little bit later from Ms. Lana, my colleague, that we've extended the admission dates for this slightly. So deadlines, that is. It's a unique program for the region, and because program evaluation in particular, but coupled to social policy, is underdeveloped in the region generally. So it's a great contribution, and we think that there'll be lots of people who, and I don't know how many of you are online, who have work experience and effectively have been working in the area of social policy or program evaluation, but without the credentialization and without the knowledge background. You're kind of doing it as a matter of practice rather than informed through some disciplinary focus. So we're looking for those kinds of people for that program. And we think it's going to make a contribution to the development of social policy and the general field of program evaluation in the region as well. Okay, now we can move on to the next slide, please. This is a description of our Master of Public Policy, which is the original program, the anchor program for the college. This is also a 2-year program. It's got distinctive features. It's a little bit more general. The MSPPE is a bit more focused on a field, social policy, and a particular skill set, program evaluation. You will get exposure to those areas here in the MPP, but the MPP has a broader scope and a broader range of introductions to different areas of public policy and perhaps a wider set of skills. So it combines interdisciplinary aspects. The ethical foundations you'll see in a moment are quite important, and this is a distinctive feature of this particular program. Not every Masters of Public Policy around the world will have the same emphasis, a single course dedicated to ethics and folding that in as a key theme in other areas. For example, thinking about sustainable governance. How do we calibrate the ethical considerations of future generations and trying to think about sustainability and climate change? So you can imagine a very different, more technical orientation to those same sets of questions. So we're doing something a little bit different here. In public management, we are emphasizing the transnational global connection, and that's something distinct and different in our program as well. Let's go to the next slide. I think all of this is fairly straightforward, and I can elaborate. This is a 36-degree program as well, taught over 2 years. 8 core courses, and you see them there in year 1. There are no electives in this program, so what you see is what you take and what you get. In the first semester, it's policy. These are kind of foundational courses: policy analysis and design, the economics, an introduction essentially to at an advanced level to micro and macroeconomics, ethics, law, and public policy. So we combine here and emphasize the importance of ethics and, of course, research methods. In the second semester, you supplement these core courses with 4 additional core courses. And you'll see an emphasis here that you wouldn't see necessarily in each and every public policy program in different institutions. So public management is fairly standard. You have to know how bureaucracies operate in making public policy, because they are the instruments of implementation. But we have global political economy. So we're asking our students to think about the global context of domestic public policy making. So a very simple and obvious example is the pandemic. You know, there are national policy responses to something that is a global challenge in its nature. So global political economy is looking at more the political economy and the market aspect, but it's giving you a global context. Comparative public policy is an emphasis, again, on comparing different national systems and subnational systems and how they tackle similar problems. And then we have an additional methods course, which is an extension of the first one and a deepening of your knowledge, particularly around, though not exclusively, program evaluation techniques. We have advanced seminars and specialization labs. So our students, after the first year, in the second year, will specialize. We invite them to specialize in 2 broad areas: social policy, education, family and health, and energy and environmental policy. In each of those, we have an advanced seminar so that students can extend and deepen their knowledge with respect to each one of those areas. And then there's a specialization lab that's designed to be more practice-oriented and to give you exposure to how policy is both made and experienced in the field and on the ground. And again, that's something that we try to emphasize in this program, is the obviously, we give people a strong theoretical foundation. As the saying goes, there's often nothing more practical than a good theory. So theoretical orientations are really important. But in addition to that, we want to give people a sense of practice, of how things actually get done in the world and what the challenges are. And so the specialization lab is intended to do that, to be a bridge. And that's complemented by the Capstone project, the MPP Capstone. And to describe the Capstone, I will now turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Logan, who will speak briefly about the Capstone and some of the other activities around the college.
Thank you, Dean Leslie. Very briefly about our Capstone projects. And to just clarify the distinction, you heard in the MSPPE program, it's a thesis based, so that will be research and a typical sort of research program that you're expected to produce. In the MPP, you have a capstone project. It's a little bit different, and we're hoping exciting in that you work with a partner and work on an applied policy question or policy evaluation or policy formulation in connection with that partner, so that you have a much more real world experience. And we're organizing these into groups of similar themes. So you might find yourself into a group of fellow students who are also interested in environmental policy questions, and a partner you're working with that is also writing or informing or evaluating those types of questions. So our vision here is that you walk away with a solid set of skills that you know how to apply because you've applied them in a real world setting with a real world partner. We have a great set of existing partnerships with external entities, some of which are international. For example, United Nations organizations, for example, the International Organization of Migration or the International Labor Organization, or other international entities that are based outside of the state of Qatar. We also have partnerships within the state of Qatar. And these, for example, are the Financial Regulatory Authority, the Qatar Fund for Development. You saw on a slide earlier, the Reach Out to Asia, a nonprofit organization, as well as Education Above All. And we've also been working with the Supreme Committee for Legacy and Development, who are leading many of the activities connected to FIFA 2022, amongst many others. And before I hand it back to the Dean, I'll just make note of another exciting aspect of the college, which is that although we have a relatively small group of faculty, this set of faculty are doing some amazing research projects and leading some amazing research initiatives. And just to give you a sense of what those are, one is a 5-year grant working on citizenship, global citizenship, and sustainability education. Another effort by multiple members of our faculty was a tracker of policies related to the pandemic. And two other projects that come to mind are evaluations, which you'll now see are important in both of our programs. One evaluation was conducted in partnership with Qatar Reads, an initiative to encourage reading in society, and another local program called Akhlaqna, which means our values, and an initiative started by the Qatar Foundation, and that's the college contributed to as a partner in conducting an evaluation of that. So there are other opportunities as well for you to work with faculty and research projects to gain research experience outside of the classes and outside of the capstone or outside of your research work. And with that, I hand it back to you, Dean.
Thank you, Dr. Logan. So if we return to the slides, Mr. Dean, there are the coordinates for the MPP coordinator, Dr. Ozkan, his email, and Ms. Amal Hassan, who's our administrative officer, and her email address as well. And you can also just go to the college website, which you probably already have, if you're attending this session, and you can find the coordinates there. And also for myself, I'm happy to respond to any questions or steer them in the direction of people who can advise you. Now, I think at this point, we'll pause and review questions that are pertinent to the program descriptions that we gave for the MPP and the MSPP before my colleague, Ms. Lana Asfer, goes further in describing the admission requirements. I know we already have a number of questions that have been dealing with admission issues, so I'll leave those for Ms. Lana after she does her presentation. But let me just, if I can, just quickly scroll through these to see which ones are pertinent to the program. Recommendation letters. Are we open to international students? That's an admissions question. Forgive me, Ms. Lana, but yes, the answer clearly is yes. No problem there. I think she will agree with me. More questions about international students, information about the faculty. Interesting program, social policy program. What's the potential chances of someone who builds a career with SOS Children's Villages, mostly on children welfare, women and youth empowerment? Again, Ms. Lana will speak directly about the admission requirements. So there are strict admission requirements for entry into the program. But if the question is about the background, I would say that's exactly the kind of person that I think we'd be very interested in reviewing, people that are coming from a social policy. Clearly, this is about children's welfare, women and youth, and have some experience in the field. So yes, the answer is yes. I think a person situated that way, all other things being equal, would be a very interesting candidate. Working semester, can I apply? That's an application. English, that's an application question. Financial aid for Ms. Lana. We're going to put her on the spot. Also, what is most common concern to be expected? Again, she can respond first to that, and Dr. Logan and I can provide some support or some additional information. Are your programs research or professional oriented? Are we going to see a PhD program? Those are two questions. So are they research or professional? I don't want to, I mean, it's always wishy-washy to say both, but in this instance, I think it's fair to say that they're both. You do have to do a capstone, you do have to do a thesis. So in both instances, you're going to be doing research, and we expect, at the master's level, it's not, we don't expect you to turn the world upside down in terms of a research contribution, but there should be some originality, some contribution, some new area of work and we're giving you research skills. The funny thing is, though, in both cases, with an MPP and an MSPPE, the expectation is typically those are considered to be terminal degrees. In the sense that most people coming out of a master's of these type, MPP or an MSPP, are going to be going out directly and working for government in the nonprofit sector. And believe it or not, many in my experience, many people graduating from an MPP, or we don't have an MPA, but a Master's of Public Administration, they often end up going to, not often, but quite significantly going into the private sector as well, because many private companies and corporations are interested in public affairs or relating to government, understanding the regulatory environment, and they need people with some policy background to do that. And you could even think of something like the Supreme Committee on Delivery and Legacy here, and the FIFA. You would think that that is all about managing stadiums and figuring out the logistics of moving people on the metro back and forth, but they're very concerned about policy issues, about sustainability. They're very concerned about how other World Cups have been managed and held, and what the legacies are in terms of education and social development. So policy questions come up all the time. So a little bit of both. On the PhD, we are looking into it. Again, our faculty complement is relatively small, but with the increased strength that we have, and we really do have a very strong faculty. We have to think about capacity issues, but I think a PhD is on the horizon. Probably within about, we would start looking very serious. We are looking at it now and reviewing it, but in terms of moving forward, I think probably in 2 to 3 years, we would start having serious conversations about implementing a PhD program. So that is in the offing. Normative policy analysis, if I understand the meaning of that, yes, definitely the role of values and ethical considerations in policy design is something I think that's a key emphasis in our program. I'm getting a little, is there a potential job for the alumna? Yes. Again, we cannot guarantee employment, but we do the best that we can to provide opportunities and support students in searching for those opportunities. Maybe, yeah, our students are doing fine. Again, scholarship, can I apply for an MPP with my master's? If you have a master's, that's fine. If you do want to do another master's, you may find that the previous master's will provide some background, but you're doing something different. Public policy, interested in pursuing applying. Okay, that's an admissions question on language and IELTS, IELTS. To international students, again, international students can definitely apply. And again, there's a question about financial background there. Again, Ms. Lana can respond to that. Do they have choose the topics of their thesis that is going along with the stand of Qatar as a country? That is not going along with the stand of Qatar as a country. The selection for the thesis selection, thesis for the MSPPE, and we are just launching that, and the students will not be looking at their theses for another year and a half. So I can't speak to that experience. The capstones, the college, for reasons of efficiency, capacity, how much we can work, and as Dr. Logan said, the capstones involve partners. We are fairly directive in terms of the areas of work in which students will direct themselves. If we can't just make it an open search for topics, because we have limitations in terms of our capacity to manage groups of students, and we have to work with partners. So there's some direction there, but we try to give our students as much latitude within those constraints in terms of searching for a topic that they can do. But I do want to make it clear, and this was already mentioned in passing or telegraphed by Dr. Logan, that the capstone is a group-based experience. It's working to some extent with a partner, not under the direction of a partner, but working with a partner. So students have to accept the reality that they cannot do anything that they like in terms of selecting the topic and pursuing a particular question that really, really interests them. But that's fine, because that's what life is like. And we do want to, as I mentioned to you, give students an experience that is in touch with the real world. And in the real world, you often don't get to do exactly what you want. So, and working with others in a research project, and working with a semi-client or a partner that is interested in what you're doing, that's an experience that is really valuable when you get out into the work world. So, that's important to keep in mind. I think students should understand that going into an application for the MPP. And I think the second part of it, with the stand of Qatar as a country, we take no position on the normative stance that students will be pursuing in their, but we do insist on objective, well-informed, evidence-based research. What your recommendations will be coming out of that is a matter for you to discuss with your supervisor, but that is students are free to work in that area as they see fit. GPA question, possibility of getting a GPA question. Bangladeshi students, we don't select on a national basis. We do accept international applications. And another admissions question. So we've got a long lineup of admission questions for Ms. Lana, but she's more than well prepared to address them. So I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Lana.
Thank you, Dean Powell. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Great to see so many of you here. So I'm going to get started. Before I start, I want to answer one question that is actually not in my presentation, and it's come up a lot because I've been following the questions. Admission does not mean scholarship. So whoever is interested needs to apply for admission first. Applicants who are admitted to the program will then be given information about how to apply for funding. So the two are not linked. Azadine, I'm ready if you would like to start the slides. Thank you so much. Okay, perfect. So we can move to the first slide. So a little bit about the requirements, and I know this came up in the questions as well. So the first thing is applicants must have a bachelor's degree with a strong academic record. So the minimum GPA is a 3 out of 4 from a recognized university. Some of you asked if you have a master's degree, which do you apply with? Please submit to us all of your academic records. So if you have, multiple degrees, please submit transcripts from all universities that you've attended. All of it will be considered in the admission process. Applicants from all fields are welcome to apply to both the MPP and the MSPPE. So if you're an engineer, you've studied medicine, regardless of what field you're from, you're welcome to apply to these programs. For applicants interested in the new program, the MSPPE, the one thing that is required is a strong quantitative background. And what would help and strengthen your application is if you have work experience in social policy and or program evaluation. Again, not a requirement, but it would be preferred. A little bit about the English proficiency, because I know there were a couple of questions about that as well. So the minimum score is a 6.5 on the IELTS or 79 on TOEFL, and it should be a valid score. So it should be a test that you have taken within the last 2 years. You can be exempt. There are several different ways to be exempt. They're listed on the website, but I'm just going to go through them briefly now because I did see that there were a couple of questions. Okay, so if you're coming from a country where the national language, the official language is English, I know we have at least one applicant here from Malawi who had that question, you would be automatically exempt. Okay, if you're coming from a country where English is not the official language, then you studied at a university where English was the language of instruction, meaning all of your courses were in English, and you can provide us with a letter from your university confirming that. Or, for example, I know for many of you it would be written on your transcript, or if it's even on the website of your university, then again, you wouldn't need to take IELTS or TOEFL. So I saw there was a question from a student from Bangladesh. As far as I'm aware, at least for the applicants we've received so far from Bangladesh, most of them have studied in English. So again, if you've studied in English, you do not need to take the IELTS exam. If you've already taken it and you have a score, by all means, send it to us and we'd be happy to put it into your file. We can move on to the next slide, please. So a little bit about the requirements. First off, the online application is available on our website. So that's the link. That link will take you through the requirements. I highly recommend that you read those before going ahead and submitting an application. You will be asked to upload a series of documents, your transcripts. It's really important that your transcripts include grades for every course you've ever taken at university. Even if you've been to more than one university, please give us everything that you have, because that's really important. If you're coming from a university where your overall GPA or cumulative average is not out of 4, please make sure that you attach a grading scale. If that's already included in the transcript, then don't worry about it. But if it's on the back of your transcript, or if you need to get it as a sort of additional document from your university registrar, please make sure to include that, because that's really, really an important document for us to have as we evaluate your application. Again, if you are exempt from TOEFL or IELTS, then please submit a letter from your university. Otherwise, you can submit the TOEFL or IELTS score along with your application. If you still haven't taken the test, hopefully by now you have, because our deadline is very soon. If you are an international student, if you're a resident, you have a little bit more time. But again, you can always email the score to us if it's not ready with your application. You do need to submit a personal statement. This is a very important part of the application. This is something that the faculty will spend a lot of time looking at. Make sure you talk about your background, what you've studied, if you've worked, what you've done, if you've done internships, research, and talk about why you want to, why you're applying to the program, and be specific. Be specific. Tell us why HBKU, and explain what you plan to do. How is this program going to help you in the future? We need your passport, and if you're a resident of Qatar, resident or national of Qatar, please also attach a copy of your Qatari ID. And then you should also submit a CV or resume. And then finally, we require 2 recommendation letters, preferably one that's academic, so from somebody who's taught you. Of course, if you've been out of university for over 10 years and you're no longer in touch with your faculty, we would accept recommendations from people that you've worked with, people you've done research with. That would be fine, but the preference is for at least one academic one. The recommendation letter submission process is a little bit different this year. So once you've submitted your online application, you will receive, like as soon as you hit submit, a confirmation page will pop up, and you will find the link to submit your recommendations over there. You will also receive a confirmation email once you have submitted your application. The confirmation email also has the link to the recommendation letters. If anyone has any questions or any trouble with that, I did see a couple of emails come in this afternoon from referees, because we are having some network issues this afternoon. So if that applies to any of you, please ask them to try in a few hours or tomorrow morning. But generally, the system works really well. We can move on to the next slide, please. So a little bit about the deadlines, and please take note of these because they vary by program. So the Master of Public Policy deadline is the same deadline that we have for all of our other programs across the university. February 1 for international applicants. Please do not contact us on February 2 saying that you want to apply, because the application will be closed and there is no way that we can open it again. So please give yourself time to apply. Please do not wait till February 1 or January 31st. Please apply this week if you plan on applying for this for fall 2020 academic cycle. For Qatari residents and applicants, the deadline is March 15, and this is especially important if you do plan on applying for funding, where funding is available. For the new program, for the MSPP program, the deadlines, again, as Dean Pal mentioned earlier, are a little bit different because this is a new program, so we wanted to give people a little bit more time. So it's going to be March 1st for international applicants. Again, that's a strict deadline. We don't have flexibility there, so please make sure you apply before March 1st. For Qataris and residents, it's April 15, and again, that's especially important to stick to if you do want to be considered for funding where that's available. I think that's all I have. I think the next slide just has the email address. Yeah, so just the email address, the website. If you have further questions, just give us a couple of days to get back to you with the email, because we are receiving lots of inquiries, especially these days as we move closer to the deadline. If you have any questions now, I think I covered everything. Just give me 1 second to have a quick look at my notes. Oh, somebody asked if they can apply for admission if they haven't graduated yet. So as long as you will graduate by this summer, I think the person had mentioned they would finish in April, which is totally fine. So as long as you graduate by the summer, that's fine for us. Just make sure that you submit your transcripts and your most updated academic record up until you know, up until this semester. Okay, so obviously we won't see the grades for this semester, but everything prior to that, as well as a list of the courses that you are taking this semester, if your transcript shows that. I think Dean Powell already mentioned, we do not have quotas at all by nationality or anything like that. Admission is based on merit. Oh, there was a question about sort of what are the most important aspects of the application. I'll just say one thing and then maybe hand it over to Dean Powell and to the faculty to elaborate. Everything is important. I would say sort of the first review that we do is of your academic credentials. Okay, so we check your university, we make sure that you, you know, have the appropriate degree. In this case, it's a bachelor's degree, that your GPA meets the minimum, that you have English proficiency. So I would say that's sort of part one. And then the sort of more qualitative elements would come after that. So through your personal statement, your CV, your recommendation letters. But I don't know if Dean Powell, did you want to mention anything else about that, or any of the other panelists?
Maybe Mr. Ezzedine could bring back the slide on admission requirements, just so that, you know, we have it clear and written out there. Mr. Ezzedine, could you bring back that slide? I think it was the third from the last. One up, or there, yeah, that one. So there's a couple of questions here, Ms. Lana. Maybe you're better equipped to answer them than I. I think maybe the next slide also had some detail, or was it the slide before?
The one before.
One before, yeah, there we go. Okay. So there were some questions about the IELTS score. Overall 6.5, so that I have an overall 6.5, so I think that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
GPA, is it restricted? Yes, you can see minimum 3.0. Somebody asked about their GPA being 3.0, so you're just on the line there. And I would echo what Ms. Lana said. I mean, we're kind of bound to as an exercise in being able to, you know, go through the hundreds of applications and begin to make first approximations of shortlists. The GPA is the first one. Language, as Ms. Lana mentioned, proficiency. Excuse me. And then we'll start looking at the additional and the letter of interest, which is very important, as Ms. Lana mentioned. It gives us a sense. And in the MSPPE, again, it's not a requirement, but having some work experience is certainly an advantage or a benefit, and working in the areas of social policy broadly defined also is an advantage. I'm just going through the questions here to make sure that we've touched on all of them. I've completed my BA special degree in translation studies. Can I apply for your master's degree? Well, for that question, again, I would encourage folks to look at these admission requirements here. A BA, as long as it meets a 3.0 GPA and you've met the language requirement, I would imagine if you're in translation studies, you will have, then that should be sufficient. Here's two questions that I just wanted to see, because I would be a little unclear as well. Will I submit my reference letters myself, or my referee will submit them? And a second related question is, can I submit the recommendation letter after the deadline? So Ms. Lana.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And there's one before that as well, but I'll answer the reference letters first. So you will, so as I mentioned, once you apply, there will be a link that you click on. So you go to that link, you need to submit your application login ID with the email that you use to apply for admission. It's really important that you have that because that will automatically populate your form for you, okay, with your information. Once that's populated, then you'll have the option to list 2 referees. So make sure you put the correct email for them, their contact name, all the information that we need, and then there's an automated system and they will receive a notification to complete the letter for you. Now there's a question here, can I submit the letter after the deadline? So the referees should receive the notification before the deadline. You should not be waiting until after February 1 to send them the notification, okay? If you are sending it on February 1, please reach out to your referees and tell them to try to complete them as soon as possible. But please do not wait until after February 1 to submit those requests. So you do not submit the reference letter yourself. You submit a request to your referees and then they will receive a notification. Somebody asked about a 68. That would really depend on sort of the context that you're coming from. It would depend on which country, which university. 68 in some countries means one type of sort of letter grade or equivalency into a 4, and something completely different in another context. So I really can't answer that question. I'm sorry, but feel free to submit your application or email us if you have further questions, and we'd be happy to reply. We cannot by email sort of give you information about your eligibility. You would need to apply, but we can sort of give you a general sense based on the university that you're coming from. If you don't have IELTS or TOEFL, can you still apply? Again, that depends. I mean, if you've studied in English and you can provide us with a letter confirming that from your university, you don't need to take IELTS or TOEFL. If your studies were in another language, your application would be considered incomplete. I mean, unless you were to, even if you were to take the exam tomorrow, the result needs about 2 weeks to come out. It would be a little bit close, unless you're a resident. I'm not really sure. But I would say if you're an international applicant and you haven't done the exam yet, might be cutting it a little bit too close. I think, is there any way I can verify if the referees have submitted my reference? That's an excellent question. You will receive a confirmation email once your referees have submitted the letter. So for each one, you'll receive a separate one.
That's good. That's good.
You're welcome.
I think that covers all of the admissions questions. And I hope that we've covered all of the key elements of the program.
I'm just going to type the email in the chat, okay, because I think I don't know if everyone got it. It's on our website. I mean, it's everywhere, but just in case, there's the email.
This is in the chat.
It's not appearing in the Q&A. Oh, where can I type it?
You can type a chat message and send it to all attendees.
Okay. So if anyone has any other questions about admissions or even questions related to curriculum, things that you think of after the presentation that you wish you had asked us, please send those to us. And if it's something that we at admissions can't answer, we will definitely pass it on to the faculty to respond to.
Great. Well, I don't want to keep people on if there are no more questions, but let me reiterate, it's a young program, it's a new college, but we've, despite the pandemic, as I mentioned to you, we started in 2019, and you all know that the pandemic began to hit in March of 2020. So we barely had 6 months to get ourselves, up and lifting off the runway when the pandemic hit. But we managed to stay in flight, and I think to push that metaphor probably further than I should, we soared and got above the cloud cover, and you know, we see a horizon of great possibilities ahead of us. It's really a great place to be. I think our students they're working hard, like all students everywhere. They often complain about how demanding the program is, but I think almost all of them are extremely complimentary. That's what I hear anyway, about their professors and their general experience in the classes. Again, it's universal to all students. I did it. Dr. Logan did it. We always complain about there being too much work, too many readings, too much writing, no time, no time, no time. But that's just the nature of the game. But it's intellectually stimulating, it's intellectually demanding, and it's intellectually rewarding. And again, we're trying to organize the college in such a way that you've got a menu of experiences that include the courses and the teaching, and that's normal and that's standard. But we're really trying to build, again, despite the constraints of the pandemic, we can't even hold in-person on-site meetings. But we've done our best, and we're, you know, and I think the events that we've had with external speakers, with folks from ministries, from NGOs, on a variety of hot topics have been extraordinary. I mean, given the circumstances, and we're really trying to develop that element of the college and its programs through the various partnerships that we have and the engagements that we have. Just as one example, in December, we held the 10th annual conference of the Association for Middle East Studies in Public Policy and Administration. And that was the first time that it was held, obviously, in 2 years on site, and we managed to pull it off. And we had a terrific event of scholars here from all around the region, you know, dealing with public policy and public administration issues. I myself and my colleagues are involved in the International Public Policy Association. So we had visitors from the IPPA back again in September. The Secretary General and one of the members of the Executive Committee gave seminars, and we are engaged with and will be engaged in an international workshop on public policy to be held in Budapest, but we have some student participation in that. So again, small, new, but I think extraordinarily dynamic, and really an interesting place for students to be. And then all of the additional resources, intellectual and otherwise, that come from our sister colleges in HBKU, and then this incredible ecosystem here in Education City. Again, just to give you an example, Qatar National Library, amazing place, but also an amazing building and an amazing venue for events and for resources. Our partner institutions, Georgetown University, literally next door, it has events all the time, again, with international leading scholars in the foreign policy field. Northwestern University, Carnegie Mellon. There are international conferences that are world class, like WISE, the World Innovation Summit on Education, and WISH, the World Innovation Summit on Health. So these things are going on all the time. So if you're thirsty and hungry for knowledge and experience and stimulation, I don't think there's a better place on the planet actually to be than here. So so I hope you're interested. I hope we've informed you, and you've got everything at your disposal in terms of being able to make an application on time, get it in on time. That's important. And Ms. Lana and her staff will be there eagerly awaiting, bent over their keyboards and their screens, waiting for the applications to flow in. So when they do come, you'll get an immediate response. Dr. Logan?
I just saw a couple of questions come in, so I thought I would catch those before we closed off. One of them was about visas, and just to praise our wonderful colleagues that despite the pandemic, they've done amazingly well ensuring that everyone's able to get here. So on that question about how's the visa situation, I assume in terms of processing and et cetera. So in normal circumstances, they're amazing. And in the pandemic, they've been especially amazing. So there's no concerns about that, and especially about US applicants, but generally we haven't had any issues there. Now, if you see a few come out, for the question from Hamid Zakaria on standouts, I think there isn't a single thing, right? Each applicant brings their own story, their own history, their own educational background. We receive applicants from the health sector, from the financial sector, as you heard from our two stellar students earlier, but also from the education sector and from a wide range of places, some who have been coming straight out of their undergraduate studies and some who have been employed for 10 years and hold high-level positions. And so we take everything into consideration. One isn't privileged over the other. There's a committee inside the college who go through applications and look at every component, the letter, your CV, your grades, etc., and make an assessment based on each of those components. So none is really worth more per se than the other. I would just emphasize what Lana was saying is really work to tell your story as opposed to trying to fit your story into someone else's. For Saeed Daoud's question about the acceptance rate of faculty in our program, you're entered into the program. You don't have to secure a supervisor, as in some universities you need to have approval from a supervisor. In both of our programs, that's not the case. You just go through the normal application procedure that was described to you today. And in your second year or towards the end of your first year, then you align yourself with a supervisor for the capstone or the thesis, depending on which program you are in. And from Mohammed Zakaria's question, diversity inclusion in the application review process. In terms of the nationality, as the dean said, there's no set requirements for distribution. What I can say here is that there's only so much funding available for scholarships. So in that sense, there's some limitation on how many international scholarships can be offered. Dean, you have anything else that you want to add on this? There
are no explicit, I mean, that may be the case in some American universities. I think they have explicit EDI guidelines. There's none here at the university level or at the college level. We don't exclude anyone, so I think by definition we're inclusive. In terms of diversity, again, we don't use that as a lens, but it de facto, the results of our admissions process are an incredibly diverse array of students. Those of you that are in Doha know, but for those of you that aren't, it's one of the most diverse places I've ever been in terms of background, ethnicities, and people from different countries and backgrounds. So by force of circumstance, between our international students and our residents that we select, but even among the Qataris, there's an incredible array of backgrounds that come in. So the diversity is almost a de facto result. One of the usual markers of diversity is the gender difference. In fact, our student population is majority female. So if that's of interest to anybody, that is some indicator of diversity. So that's kind of the picture on that front. Based in Ghana, applied for the MPP, still have not gotten a chance to be admitted. Still like an application window. I think that's a question for Ms. Lana, the last question there on the list. I'm not sure. Not gotten a chance to be admitted, which I've still not given up in this application window as well. Okay, so continue applying. Yeah, maybe that's not for Ms. Lana, that's more for me, but Ms. Lana can chime in. It's a very competitive process. I mean, we only have a limited number of places. I mean, in order to ensure the quality of the instruction at a master's level, we have to keep our classes small, relatively small, 20 to 25 at the most. And we literally get hundreds. In fact, given our size, I think we get a disproportionate number of applications. So we have to be extremely selective. So I'm sorry that if you weren't able to make it through the last couple of cycles, but I'm encouraged by your continued optimism. So keep up, and it may happen. And yeah. Okay, I'm going to give another 60 seconds if anybody has any additional questions. or further questions? Again, this is not the end of our efforts to respond to your questions. You've got the emails, I believe, of Dr. Oskan, Ms. Amal, myself, Ms. Lana. You can find our emails on the CPP website. So if there's any additional questions that you have, you can follow up subsequently in an email. Is there any allocated number of scholarships to Afghan students? I do not believe so, but Ms. Lana, do you have a...
I'm not aware of anything specific. No, I think it's, the funding is kind of general.
Mm-hmm.
I see here I have emailed and called on WhatsApp, but didn't receive a call or a text back. On WhatsApp? What? Sorry, Noor, we don't actually have a phone number. So
Mm-hmm.
who were you sending a message to? The best way, if you have questions about admissions, is to reach us through the admissions. There's a number online website. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We're actually working remotely these days.
Miss Lana, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm thinking on the slide where we identified Dr. Oskan and Miss Amal, we may have put a telephone number down there.
Oh, okay.
Those are office numbers and yeah,
Oh, I
extensions,
see. Okay.
which actually we need to change that slide for the future. If we do give a telephone number, we should give the full, +94 and the full university number. But those are extensions to the university telephone system.
Okay, I see.
So if I'm just guessing, but if that was the number that Noor was trying to reach through WhatsApp, then it wouldn't work.
Okay, Noor, I would recommend just emailing us. I promise you, someone will get back to you within 2 to 3 days max. I mean, typically it's 5, but we're trying to respond to people's inquiries as soon as possible. So please just send us an email. And if there's something specific that you need to discuss about your situation, 4 months ago, I didn't receive a call. Yeah, I'm really not sure that it was a WhatsApp number. Yeah, I'm really sorry, Noor. I don't know where that is. If you wouldn't mind actually just emailing me where you saw that so we can get that addressed, because we don't have a WhatsApp number, at least not for admissions. So if you could email me what your inquiry is, and then email me if it's something specific that you need to talk to someone about, just email us your phone number and we'll call you. Just tell us, I think you said you're in the US. Tell us what time zone you're in, so we call at an appropriate time. And then if you can share with me that link by email, so I can look into what that is. California. Okay. Wow. So it's really early there. Okay, great. Yeah, just send us an email. I'm gonna type the email one more time in the chat just to make sure everybody has it.
Okay, I'm trying to send a chat message with Dr. Oskan's email address, so hopefully that will get through to everyone. Okay.
While you're both typing those email addresses, Abdurrahman is asking about age for admission, and this is not considered as a factor. We have, as I mentioned, some students who are mid-career or further along in their careers, and some that have just recently graduated. So that's there's no limitation or consideration in the application process regarding age.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Azzedine. Okay, I think we did get a few additional questions. Got the email Pacific time started from him. Well, my compliments to Miss Noor for joining us at 4 a.m. California time. Okay, everyone, I think we're near the end. The deadline for MSPPE is March the 1st. That's for international students, correct, Miss Lana?
Sorry, the deadline.
For the MSPPE is March the 1st for
Yes,
international
March
students?
1st for international and April 15 for Qataris and residents. So basically everything is delayed by a month for the new program. Yeah.
Was it March 15th? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I should know.
I think, oh yeah.
March 1st. Yeah, it is March
Dean,
1st.
is it the first? Okay. Yeah,
It is the
that's
first.
what I thought.
You were
Okay.
right. You were right, Ms. Lana. Yeah, I should never question your expertise. Okay. All right. I'm gonna call it. So thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to Ms. Lana and Mr. Ezzedine in particular for managing all of this backstage, and for my colleagues who kindly contributed their time, and to our two Dean's List students who also spoke at the very beginning. If some of you missed them, they were the examples of our exceptional students in the program, even though all our students are exceptional in one way or another, but they happen to make the Dean's List, which is great. So we hope that we've given you enough information for you to make a serious consideration about the College of Public Policy here at Hamad bin Khalifa University in Doha, Qatar. If you have any questions, you've got all of the contact information available, and we'll do our very best to get back to you as quickly as possible and help you out. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ezzedine. Thank you, Ms. Lana.
Bye. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.